Welcome back. We've all heard about and read about the Great Resignation. As I mentioned, from April through September, we lost nearly 20 million people in the workforce. They all quit. So where did they go? And the ones remaining, how do we keep them? With us to tackle that tough subject is Nidia Garza, Vice President of Talent Management at MMM Holdings, a client of Go One, who are sponsors of this event. So Nidia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ken, and hi, everyone. Definitely, it's a question that's in everyone's mind about the Great Resignation, and I don't know that you'll get any specific answers about where people are going, but definitely we want to talk about what can we do to retain the talent that we have and how to re-engage and reignite the passion of that talent. So let's talk about first what's going on. And you know, if you're a fan of The Office, you remember Oscar and Oscar being a character there that was diverse in the workforce. And this is just, for me, exactly what's going on out there, right? People say, I don't think I can work here any longer for any reason, whether it is the fact that they question what they wanted to do during, you know, the lockdown and the pandemic, whether they just, you know, consider other options, or simply because they noticed that the environment that they were in was being stressful or not connected or aligned with their own goals. So we're going to talk about that particular situation. And, you know, you can see out there, these are pictures that I've taken myself from many of the situation out there, many of the signs and people, you know, hiring and looking for talent, offering hiring bonus, offering sign-on bonus, offering all this kind of, you know, benefits that they weren't necessarily offering before. And that's just because of that lack of talent or talent leaving the organization. We're going to see, and you have on screen, and you'll get a copy of this as well. You're going to see and this slide has animation. I'm not sure that I can. Oh, there you go. Should have tested this part. So what you're going to see is, you know, it comes from the McKinsey & Company survey about the factors of what employees think is important as they stay in the organization. And you're going to see the employee and employer's view. Now, some of these elements are either as important as employers think, and some are more important. What I've done is I've selected the 4 that are the most important, both from the employers and the employees side, which is they want to be in an organization that feels that they're valued. They want to have work-life balance, valued by manager, and the sense of belonging. So what I want to do for this next part of our conversation, I want to make sure that we take this in consideration for the concept that succession and career management is one of the most underused tools for both recognition and retention, but also for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why do I say that? Because succession and career management, especially talent reviews, have the opportunity to lift every rock in the organization to make sure that everyone gets opportunities. And I've kind of arranged this session to where we'll see kind of the path of what we have been doing as, you know, in the U.S. On the succession side and retention. What are we doing now, and what are the tendencies for the future? So first, I want you to think about your own situation, your own company, the one that you sit in and that you have the most knowledge. Besides thinking about, you know, the goals that you have about representation or how many people of what you know, ethnicity or race do you have in what positions, I want you to think in other demographic challenges that can definitely be solved with the help of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and succession management. So what is the head count of your organization? And of course, you don't have to answer me I don't think this is even the right forum for that, but this is for you to reflect on these questions. What's the number of leaders? What is their average age and percentage over that 59-year-old threshold? Because we know that approximately, Gallup says that the retirement age is between 62 and 65. So, which is sometimes one of the things that takes our sleep at night. How are we going to replace leaders or have successors for those leaders retiring? And then the average length of service in your organization. And then what worries you the most? Is it loss of organizational knowledge, hard to fill positions, vacant strategic roles, or losing talent due to lack of career progression, or because of the Great Resignation? You can also add things there that are connected to your strategic goals around diversity and representation. And then what are your current practices where you are? Is it replacement planning? You do have some tapping on the shoulder and for just top executives and chosen not necessarily with a system or a process in place, or maybe it is a process in place. What is your leadership development for new and existing leaders? Or if you have any, do you have any internship, mentorship for all employees versus leaders? Do you have executive assimilation coaching or any executive assimilation program for new executives? Succession planning or a talent review process? Or you have any succession talent management with talent pools, etc. So that exercise is good for you to practice. If you don't have all the answers now, it's fine. You can take it. This is for you. You're going to have the PDF of this presentation for you to take a look at your situation and understand how to connect with these strategies that we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about, and because it's Christmas time, it's the holidays, we're going to talk about the ghost of retention past or succession past. What are the practices that we've done historically that either have worked or not, and why they don't work for the present and the future as things are progressing and we're working in this new normal. So let's talk about the ghost of the past. We all have heard of that tap on the shoulder. We've done it for years. Organizations have done, look, I'm going to tell you to get on this project, or you're going to be selected for this leadership academy, or there's leadership development opportunity. That tap on the shoulder is kind of a practice of many years, and many organizations are still there. Many have gone past from there, but in one way or another, every organization has gone through that tap on the shoulder. Or measures based in only two perspectives, either kind of their results number oriented, or performance oriented, or specific tasks versus the ability to lead people, right? It has been historically subjective and unequal. So we have perpetrated this inequality or inequity in our practices without really doing it purposefully, but it's definitely hurting talent. And then that give bigger title not to lose talent, but really they're doing the same thing. And what this has led to is to inequity, lack of diversity of thought, of course, frustration among employees in an organization. And the most important is organizations do not mirror those communities that they serve in. So that's kind of the ghost of retention past. And some of you may encounter that that's where they are right now. Some of you may be in the ghost of retention and succession present, right? And what is that ghost of retention and succession present? Well, it looks like having a more robust performance management system, whether it is annual, quarterly, based on feedback, based on either job description, values, competencies, and measuring that. A promotion and succession is based, more about accomplishments and what they've done in a specific role. But communication has been limited. And there's some companies and some practices in which we're doing, talent reviews, but the communication is being very protected. So there's this feeling of inequity among other people, right? Or the development opportunities are created for the high potentials or high performers, but not necessarily trickles down to the organization. What that leads to is a small number of diverse talent. We're giving opportunities. It's just a more sophisticated tap on the shoulder that we've done before. Does that mean that it's wrong? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, but it's not where it's taking us to where we're really building a platform for talent to be retained and to be motivated and want to feel valued, which is what we saw in that slide, feel valued and have that sense of belonging. And of course, it doesn't give us that opportunity to showcase talent and skills at all the levels of the organization. So what is it that we need for the ghost of retention and succession future to put that light, to shed that light at all levels and for all people, everyone, and given that the same amount of opportunities? And I think the first thing is definitely create the space to have talent reviews and calibrations in panels. What does that mean? Doing the talent review, and of course, in about 20 minutes, I can go into the content of a talent review. But if you're not doing them and you're a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner, please partner with your talent management, of your HR or your L&D, whatever that practitioner that's doing or has that knowledge about succession management and talent reviews, because it's a great way to make sure that everyone is being looked at and everyone has that opportunity to be discussed. And those calibrations, sessions, and panels allow not only the direct supervisor, like in a performance management approach, to be able to talk about that talent, but others at the same level as the direct supervisor to jump and provide specific examples that would allow us to get to know more of that 360 behavior and potential of that person. Open communication. I think the best thing we can do is, not in numbers, but share, not in numbers. You are in box number 9 or 7. That's not the right communication approach, but definitely communicate with different people. You're being looked at. Why? Because you have performed to a certain level. We are really proud of the work that you're doing. You're important for the organization, right? Opportunities to grow and develop at any level. Many of the times we do the tap on the shoulder for the emerging leaders, and then we try to fix it on the top, right? And we do the talent management and talent reviews part for leaders. But the pipeline is already contaminated by subjectivity. Why? Because the first time they got on the road of leadership, they were tapped on the shoulder. So the best idea is to allow, a system in which everyone can have an opportunity to decide if they want to be a leader or not. One of the practices that has worked for me is we created and curated learning paths during the pandemic, especially for sales folks that, couldn't go out on the street and sell at that point. And we created 16 learning paths through Go On and make sure that they had the ability to get credits. And we created this system of credits. And when you get to a certain amount of credits, you are eligible to become a part of the cohort of the Emerging Leader programs. In that Emerging Leader program, you will get to a position in which part of the program, you decide if you want to continue your leadership journey, or you are comfortable being an individual contributor, or you want to be a leader of processes and systems. So once they get into that decision making, they themselves put themselves forward into more development, but we give the same opportunity for everyone to apply according to the learning that they're willing to take and the moment that they are in. To decide that you don't want to be a leader at this moment does not impede your growth and development at a different point. So having those programs in which instead of tapping on the shoulder, we can do kind of a coaching approach into, do you want to get more into your leadership journey, is very important. And mentorship programs at all levels versus leadership, just having mentorship programs and fellowships for diverse talent specifically to grow into the areas that they are more excited about. That definitely creates that value that employees say they want. That definitely creates that sense of belonging. It's not the only way, but it's one of the ways that we create those things that employees are looking for, that sense of belonging, valued by manager and valued by organization. And of course, by them having ownership of and control of their development, they feel like they can put more on their plate if they want to. So with that said, I want to make sure that, one, we have some time for questions, but not only that, I just like a Christmas Carol, I think we can have a happy ending if we invest time, resources, and just have that approach of partnership between, HR or talent management and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's such a powerful partnership, especially when we're looking at the development of the talent to come. I definitely want to keep the conversation going. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions. And I also have included here my LinkedIn. So if anyone wants to keep the conversation going, besides today and the time that we have, we can do so.
So Nidia, thank you very much. That's terrific. We have a few questions here, and I'd encourage anyone, if you have questions, please add them to the chat room, and we'll try to get to them with the time we have available. So my first question, Lydia, is in the past, the top 3 reasons why people leave where their manager, they say that people leave, they don't leave companies, they leave their manager, or a job challenge and opportunity for growth. You've added value, work-life balance, and belonging. So what has changed and why?
Thank you. I think they're an evolution of those reasons more than they have changed. I think it's still, my manager and being valued by my manager is such a big thing. Not only do I want a good manager and not a bad one, but I also want to make sure that they value me. And I think it's an evolution of how the answer was, said at the time. And I think the same way that 15 years ago we realized that the customers have the power because they were able to talk to each other. They were able to see the ratings of one business versus another. Today, employees are the customer, and they are able to see that they have the power, that they're the machine that turns every single result in the organization. So they want to make sure that they're valued. They want to make sure that they belong. And if not, that they're not wasting their time, because time has become more and more valuable. And it has to do a lot with the pandemic. And I think the pandemic allowed people to understand that time is not this, infinite resource that we have, that, spending time with family, spending time with, or not being able to spend time, and then recognizing those differences made a huge difference. So now when I come out, the sacrifice has to be, the same as the reward. And the reward has to be a place where I'm valued, where I feel like I can, create value, and that not only I'm valued, but I belong. This is where I want to be. Does that make sense? Or
It absolutely does.
answer the question?
It absolutely does. And so what you're really talking about here is a sophisticated talent management system, a system that is part of the fabric of an organization. So to what degree do organizations that you've come in contact have sophisticated career management organizations? And is that pervasive? Is it the exception to the rule? And what are some of the trends beyond just the present practices that you see?
Thank you, Ken. I think the biggest thing is all organizations have different levels. I think everyone has the intention to have a talent management approach that works for their employees. And different companies have it in different levels, at least the ones I've had the pleasure of working with and getting to know in different times and different times of their evolution as a company and different times in the calendar years, right? So I think the intention is there, but there's a myth that you have to have a lot of resources, meaning money and people, to run this system and this process to make it work. And that's a myth, because you can do it with $0 and you can do it with a lot of budget. What changes is what tools you can use to measure. But in reality, as long as you have, a CEO or a senior leadership that wants to do this work, you can do it with very little resources. The biggest part is to have people that are willing and able to calibrate talent. And I'm going to share a very short story that happened to me a few years ago. We were doing calibration sessions, and those take time. I was doing it in a company of about 5,000 employees, and the CFO just didn't think that had the time to do this and missed. We had 5 calibration sessions in a week, missed the first 2, came to the third one, and I guess someone said, "This is important, you have to come." CFO comes and then tells me, "How many of these have we done?" And I'm like, "Well, this is the third one." "How can I see the other 2? And I'm like, "Well, we can show you, but you can't participate anymore. Those are done." And he said the following. He said, "This is the best use of my time," which I didn't know until I came to calibrate talent in the organization. But this has to be the best use of my time. And I think I want to be involved in everything we do, from this point forward. And he became one of the biggest proponents of the work of talent management, especially that talent review and calibration. So bringing people on board, help them understand that their opinion of different people, even if they don't report directly to them, it's so important to get a different point of view and lift every rock to make sure that everyone is being seen and feels seen. It's crucial and critical for that sense of belonging and for the success of the organization.
Thanks for that, Nidia. Another question. As you know, in the last couple of years, the largest portion of the workforce are millennials. Baby boomers have become less dominant, if you will. It's really dominated by millennials now, as well as we have Gen X and Gen Z. So what are the different characteristics, generational characteristics, that we should be aware of as we think about talent management?
Thank you. I think there's some myths and some realities about the differences in between the generations. I actually did my PhD research, my dissertation on the differences for retaining millennials, and quickly realized that there's a myth that different generations have different needs to be retained. And more in my research, I found that they may say or may express them in a different way, but everyone has that need of belonging and recognition. it may be different. Maybe the boomers and Xers need a handwritten note. Maybe the millennials need an email or a gift card. It may be a different representation, but they all look for recognition, which is that I'm being valued for the organization, valued by my manager. They all look for a place in which they can add value, which is that sense of belonging. They can add value to the community or the customer or whatever that final person for them is. And then finally, they all look to get something from this exchange, to get either if it's boomers and what they need is financial security, or whether it's Xers or millennials that they look a more social interaction, or whether it is Generation Z that looks for more balance. But they all look to get something that will fulfill their value system. So in a way, we're all very similar. We just represented or have that last piece of the puzzle a little bit different.
Thank you. One last question that we got from the audience. For any of these talent management, talent development processes and systems to work, we really need to have the buy-in and support of supervisors and middle managers. How do you get that done?
Thank you. That is key and is critical. You start with the top. The top has to be engaged in it. And just like the story of the CFO that I talked about, many are not going to see it until they live through it. So you have to be comfortable with the idea that you're going to push and start the process before you get the buy-in. But when people see and feel the process and how important it is, they're going to tag along. The first key is, have at least one executive sponsor on board that's willing to fight for it. And second, build a process that's there to support the operation, not the other way around. Meaning you want to build a process that's going to solve the problems that they want to solve. So basically going back to this slide over here. This slide, just make sure that you have that right hand part. What worries you the most? What worries the organization the most? What's taking the sleep of the senior management or the CEO of your organization that you want to solve through this process?
Thank you very much, Nidia. That was terrific. So I think we have much more clarity about this subject in terms of the Great Resignations and what we can do about it. It kind of all boils down to really good, sophisticated talent management. So Nidia, thank you so much.